Hello and welcome to the No Labels Tackling Gender Stereotypes that Hold Back Women Tech Entrepreneurs in Low and Middle Income Countries. This is an online event and panel discussion delivered in partnership with the Cherie Blair Foundation for Women, in collaboration with CW Cambridge Wireless and supported by Synergy Solutions. This webinar is the third in a series of 4. During this period of International Women's Month, the theme is highly apt: choose to challenge. Individually, we are responsible for our own thoughts and actions, but collectively, we can achieve so much more. Collectively, we can address the unhelpful gender stereotypes that have presented barriers to women being equally represented within the sector. This webinar is focused primarily on the tech sector within low and middle income countries. We know and see that the sector is growing at a phenomenal pace, accelerated by COVID, but yet it still continues to be dominated by men. The 2020 Global Gender Gap Report estimated at the beginning of the year that closing the gender gap in economic participation and opportunity was a staggering 257 years away. That's 55 years longer than estimated in 2019. This webinar will last 1 hour. During this time, it will seek to raise awareness on gender stereotypes within the tech sector, with the aim of reflecting the impact of these gender stereotypes on gender equality within the sector, on women working in the sector, on the tech companies themselves also. The webinar provides an opportunity to share strategies and ideas on what approaches or programs have been successful in dismantling gender stereotypes and negative social norms within the sector. Our hope is that whatever your organization, whatever your role in it or sector, you will come away with a new idea, fresh perspective on how to tackle gender stereotypes in the tech sector. My name is Ola Rugbu, and I'm the CEO and founder of Synergy Solutions, a specialist consultancy practice focused on helping companies embrace digital technology safely, whilst remaining resilient and responsive to the rapidly changing environment. I'm also on the board of CW Cambridge Wireless, and I will be chairing the event for today. So if we go to housekeeping, if your screen freezes, please just refresh your page. If you have any questions for the speakers, please use the panel on the right-hand side of your screen. If you have any problems, you can use our live support feature, which appears as a small help bubble in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. This webinar is divided into 2 sections. The first part, you will hear from each of our esteemed speakers. In the second half, there'll be a panel discussion and you will have the opportunity to ask our speakers questions. So some information about our partners. The Cherie Blair Foundation for Women has supported over 175,000 women entrepreneurs in more than 105 countries since 2008. In addition, the foundation is powering ahead with the 100,000 Women campaign, with a compelling vision to support a further 100,000 women entrepreneurs globally by 2023. CW Cambridge Wireless is a not-for-profit, members-owned organisation with a mission to help our members network, learn and grow. With significant expertise in driving innovation through collaborative working, sharing knowledge and building communities, leveraging our active community of over 1,000 technology companies, ranging from major network operators, device manufacturers, through to innovative startups and universities. We are pleased to have with us today Sian Hawkins, Director of External Affairs at the Cherie Blair Foundation for Women, Odunaya Sanya, who's the General Manager for Planning and Customer Management at MTN Nigeria, and Fadel Gonro, who's the founder and CEO of Bookings Africa, and has recently joined the Cherie Blair Foundation for Women as the first African female board member of their Global Campaigns Board. So welcome to you all. In addition to our speakers, I would like to welcome you, wherever you are in the world, to this, our third event. So welcome to you. With this in mind, I would like to welcome our first speaker, Sean Hawkins, who's the Director of External Affairs for the Cherie Blair Foundation for Women. Sean will share the research findings from the Foundation's annual audit report. Welcome, Sean, and over to you.
Great, thank you so much, Olu. And it's just so fantastic to be here with you today and alongside just such a brilliant panel of women who I'm really excited to hear from as well. So first of all, just a little bit of information about the foundation. And as Olu said in the introduction, we've been around since 2008. And over that time, we've supported more than 175,000 women entrepreneurs across over 100 low and middle income countries. And we do this by providing essential entrepreneurial skills, training, and knowledge to women entrepreneurs in a number of different ways. And we're lucky to have just some of the most fantastic donors and in-country partners. And please do check out our website and connect with us to find out more about the work that we're doing. We've always at the Foundation aimed to use innovative tech in order to enable our programs to reach more women, to scale up our programs, and to make sure that we can really remain at the cutting edge of providing essential and timely information and support to women entrepreneurs across the world. So it's great to be here today talking to you about a section of the kind of entrepreneurship industry that's really close to our hearts at the Foundation. And next slide, please. And the next one. Great, thank you. So gender stereotypes start early. By 6 years old, children are already classifying some jobs as male and some jobs as female. They're already associating intelligence with maleness and niceness with being female. And by the age of 13, children and young people are ruling out entire swathes of careers and industries that don't fit within gender stereotypes. And there's a huge amount of research to show that all over the world and at every education level, women are much less likely to study STEM subjects. Girls are much less likely to take it forward into higher education and further education, and far less likely to enter into STEM careers. And common gender stereotypes that are around us all the time reaffirm wider cultural biases. So, for example, we often hear stereotypes that women are kind, emotional, and caring. Men are really often associated with attributes around authority, confidence, and courage. And this is really, really important for us to unpick in the context of entrepreneurship, because research has shown time and time again that both men and women see strong, similar associations between typically male-coded characteristics and entrepreneurial traits like assertiveness, risk-taking, and competitiveness. So these gender stereotypes, which render traditionally male attributes as key traits of successful entrepreneurship, are extremely powerful gatekeepers, and they have a massive impact on how women entrepreneurs are perceived, and they restrict women's access to investment, to networks, and to peers. So the experience of gender stereotypes came up as a huge barrier for women entrepreneurs in our 2019 inaugural annual audit report. So in our 2020 research, which we published just earlier this month, please do check it out. We wanted to dig a bit deeper into what these experiences are and where these gender stereotypes are coming from, what are the sources. So our research looked at the experiences of 125 women entrepreneurs across over 30 low and middle income countries. And we asked women entrepreneurs if they'd experienced a wide range of stereotypes that we harvested from our previous research and where they were coming from. Was it friends or family, business acquaintances or co-workers, the media, or potential investors? And the results, while not necessarily particularly surprising, are really quite staggering in terms of the prevalence and origins of the experiences of stereotypes that women entrepreneurs are facing. Next slide, please. So we found, and this is quite a busy chart, and I will attempt to unpick the most salient points for you, and you can obviously find it in our research. But what we found across the women entrepreneurs that that responded to our survey was that by far and away the most common source of gender stereotypes that women are experiencing is friends and family. And the stereotypes that women were experiencing from friends and family were usually those that associated women with traditional roles around motherhood and caregiving. So, for example, 57% of respondents have been challenged by family members with the stereotype that men don't like women who are too strong, too business-minded, too successful. And 53% of respondents had experienced the stereotype that women should prioritise domestic duties, such as caring for children. And then 50% had experienced a stereotype that running a business is simply not compatible with motherhood. So sadly, for many of the women entrepreneurs who we're working with, the very people who are often closest to them are the people who are putting in place these sort of artificial barriers to women's business successes and tempering and dampening their aspirations. Many women also reported being challenged with gender stereotypes by co-workers and business acquaintances. And these were usually stereotypes that are linked to a perceived lack of, usually male, characteristics and traits that we've come to associate with entrepreneurial and business success. So over 4 in 10 women responding had experienced negative stereotypes from business associates or co-workers that women are not assertive enough. Our research also showed that the media fuels many of the gender stereotypes and that women entrepreneurs are facing. And we know that the media underpins so many of the attitudes that are perpetuated and reinforced through our societies about women. And in fact, research by the UN Stereotype Alliance and Kantar found across 56 countries, only 7% of women and 9% of men are being depicted in non-traditional roles through advertising. And actually, alarmingly, they found that through the COVID pandemic, progressive depictions of women in the media are actually worsening and slowing down. The most commonly reported gender stereotype we found being reported coming from the media from our respondents was that men are more ambitious than women. And 1/3 of women reported that the media expressed stereotypes that women should be prioritising domestic duties, such as caring for their children. Next slide, please. So crucially for our entrepreneurship audiences, there are also a large number of reports of women experiencing negative gender stereotypes from potential investors. And as you can see from this quote from one of our respondents from India, the most commonly experienced gender stereotypes from investors amongst our research participants is that women are not innovative. And 28% of respondents reported that they'd experienced the stereotype from investors that women are just not good entrepreneurs. And I'm really conscious here in reporting these figures, particularly around investment. We could really be quite wildly underreporting the prevalence of these stereotypes within investor audiences, given that so few of the women responding to our survey were able to access formal investment at all. Next slide, please. So my colleagues will talk to you a lot more about the impact of stereotypes within the tech sector, but I briefly want to touch on some of the implications of the ongoing stereotypes within the sector and how we can work together to dismantle some of these stereotypes. Next slide, please. So the implications for a continually heavily male-dominated tech sector are numerous, and I'm sure the audience have got plenty of experience of this and stories to share, and we'd absolutely love to hear them. But we know that we're losing out on opportunities that women entrepreneurs represent in terms of innovation, creativity, and ideas. Tech companies will inevitably continue to create products and services largely through a male lens and a male gaze. And we continue to lack female role models in the tech sector to inspire our next generation of budding women entrepreneurs. So it's really crucial we act now, and we can do this in a number of ways. Firstly, we must be able to work together to challenge the status quo where, let's face it, male-run tech startups and male-run firms are the norm. And the vast majority of investment in the tech sector goes to male-founded businesses. And we can do this and start challenging the status quo by encouraging more women and girls into STEM subjects and STEM careers and making space for them. But the burden of all of this can't just fall on women. And for our male allies in the audience, we need you too. In order for women entrepreneurs to be able to enjoy equal access to investment opportunities and networks, we need our male allies to make space too and to share your power. And whilst this work is urgent, the reality is it's going to take time and requires a deep understanding of the root causes of these stereotypes. So we need to start seeing some real and long-term commitments. And finally, we want successful women and tech entrepreneurs to be more visible, for their stories to be shared and celebrated, and used to inspire our next generation of women entrepreneurs. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sean. So that's fantastic. So what we'll do is we'll ask questions at the end as part of the panel discussion. So I'm pleased to welcome, let me just go back. I'm pleased to welcome our next speaker, Odonaya Sanye, who's the General Manager for Planning and Customer Management at MTN Nigeria. Odonaya will provide us with some insight on how MTN Nigeria are actively tackling gender stereotypes and unconscious bias in the workplace. Thank you, and well, over to you, Odonaya.
Thank you very much, Olu, and thank you, Sean, for that. I think you've made it all easy for me. You set the tone, and thank you to the audience for being part of this today. Before I delve into what we do at MTN Nigeria, I'd just like to share some statistics with us, which we could already know, but at times the power of these numbers comes by remembering and reinforcing them. I did read a report from the World Bank, and it says that the world is leaving, that there's a gender dividend of about $170 trillion that the world is leaving, that globally we leave as nations, as private businesses on the table because of gender inequality. So keep that number in mind, 170 trillion. Now there's a GSMA report that said that, that women-founded startups tend to deliver twice as much per dollar invested as those founded by men. So when you look at this, it suggests the obvious that, when a lot of people say woman is an incubator, she multiplies. Women are more effective in running businesses and in, recreating, opening up the economy. Now, I'll just share one more of the statistics again. And it says that, in low and middle income countries, which is our focus for this webinar, women are 10 times less likely than men to own a phone. And it's quite very obvious. And it's all because in these low and middle income countries, of which, well, my country, Nigeria, is one, you find that the society is patriarchal. It's really about the male. The man everything is defined as male. Meanwhile, success and significance are actually gender neutral. The world is really gender neutral. And so that I'm just trying to put it in context, what we leave and what we're potentially losing when we wait for this 200 plus years that Olu was talking about before we catch up. It's not a competition, like I always tell people, but it's a journey of completeness. The world is better when we walk side by side each other. I'm a mother. I have 3 daughters, so you can understand where I'm coming from. My children have also been raised. I'll soon get to MTN. Not to remember their ladies. I was raised. I don't remember I'm a woman. It doesn't come to me, but I know I exist in an environment where, I am an exception rather than the norm. And I think why we're having this is so that we can begin to change the narrative and begin to convert this $170 trillion to actual economic growth and empowerment for women. Now, to MTN, you may know MTN, we're a group, where it's a group structure, and we're an ICT telecoms firm, covered with footprints in Africa and the Middle East. Now, in MTN, we like to break barriers. We like we don't believe that, the glass ceiling exists. And you can see this in the core belief of MTN, really, is that we believe that every individual, it's our core belief, it's cast in stone, really, deserves the benefits of a modern connected life. It has nothing to do with whether you're male or you're female. Now, when you look at our structure in MTN, we have made a conscious effort. We have been intentional around making the woman, more comfortable at work, because we know that we can get a lot more. We know that when the woman is comfortable at work and, belongs there, then we see more innovation and higher productivity. And how do we do this? You can check our executive team from the group and even in Nigeria. We do have a number of roses among the thorns. Apologies to the men here. We have a number of roses. We have women that are taking on, really, really challenging roles across the group and within Nigeria. I recall that MTN Nigeria was the first company to have a female CTO, a chief technical officer. And we've had this more than once. I think we've had like 2 female CTOs. And the way that we do this is that I've talked about our dedicated commitment to diversity and inclusion. At every OpCo, we have diversity and inclusion champions. So it's part of our culture. We've also done this apart from our core belief. We've done this by deliberately creating the culture. There's something that our culture, we gave birth to, we call it the process of the cultural operating system. And we gave birth to our culture, and that is 4 vital behaviors. And it's all about, complete accountability, complete candor. It's about getting it done and full collaboration. And so these things have nothing to do with whether you're male or you're female. And that is the culture of the organization. There are processes in place to pick when, people stray from the culture and the process, kicks in. We have a thriving female network within MTN Nigeria. We call it the Way. So I always tease my male colleagues. I say, may the Lord bless the Way. So Way means women at yellow. Then the May will be the men at yellow. Our greeting in MTN is yellow. So we have a thriving mentorship platform called the Women at Yellow. We network with each other. We celebrate together. We have book clubs that spring up. That's our own way of enabling each other learn. And, we get mentored by fellow women that have done great things in the environment. So we invite women to come talk to us and all of that. And also when you check our technical division, out of 5 of the top leadership, 3 of them are women. So that's in the information technology team. I've talked about our cultural operating system because I see my time is almost up. And also for us, it's talked about our core belief. But I'd like to share what we do at the MTN Foundation. So MTN has the foundation where we dedicate about 1% of our profit after tax, to improve the environment, do CSR, ESG, and all of that. Now, we have the STEM scholarships that we give to about 300 to 400 Nigerians every year. It's a STEM scholarship. About 2 years ago, we started the intentional journey of driving up female participation. And I think I'm glad to say that as at last year, even though it was during the pandemic, we recorded a 28% increase in terms of female returns for the calls for application. And we know I know that this will only continue to grow. And so those are some of the things that we do in MTN. It's about being intentional. It's about being deliberate, creating your culture, and the values that guide the relationships that exist. It's about putting on the table the diversity question, and trying to answer it, knowing fully well that when we're diverse, there's a lot of innovation. There's a lot of perspectives that come into play. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that, Adonaya. That was really insightful. And you make a really nice point around the importance of culture. So not just focusing on the diversity, but diversity and inclusion. So again, you will have the opportunity to ask Adonaya some questions. So we're now going to move on to our next speaker. So Rich, I'm going to ask you just to move the slide on to next. Okay, so I'd like you to welcome Fadel Gonro, who is the CEO and founder of Bookings Africa. So Fadel, first of all, congratulations on your recent appointment to the Cherie Blair Foundation for Women's Global Campaign Board.
Thank you very much.
Fadel will share her personal journey of being an entrepreneur and successfully scaling her tech business despite gender-based discriminations. So welcome, Fadel, and over to you.
Thank you so much. It's so great to be here. First of all, Sean and Odunayo, you have just set the platform, and a lot of points that I wanted to make, you've already highlighted them. So this is going to make my presentation a lot easier. So once again, and thank you very much to everyone who's tuned in. My name's Fadel, CEO of Bookings Africa, and Bookings Africa is an online digital work platform that basically connects service providers to the world at large, to clientele all over the world. So whether you want to book somebody to physically come to you or have a video call and it's a paid for service, you can do that on the platform. So my journey as an entrepreneur started in 2010, way before Bookings Africa was launched, which was in 2011. I started my own production company with my brother, who's a director. I moved to Nigeria and I decided that I want to run the production company. He was still living in London, and the bias that I first encountered was sitting in a room full of men, and they walked in and asked, "Oh, are you the model or are you the PA? Where's the boss? We want to speak to the chairman." And I was like, I thought they were joking, because coming from the UK, they're not that blatant about the bias. You know, it's probably behind closed doors and my back turned. I thought they were joking. And I was like, are you serious? Like, I am the chairwoman. I am the co-founder. So if you want to speak to the chairman, who's my brother, you're going to have to wait about 2 weeks when he's available to fly into Nigeria. Until then, you've seen the work that we've done. You've seen our show reel. You know about my creativity. And if you're telling me that you don't want to do work with me because I'm a woman, I think I don't want to do work with you, because I think that I wouldn't want to be representing, or my brand or my company working with people who have such a narrow lens of what women are capable of achieving. I turned it on them straight away. And I don't think they were used to women having such a strong stance and voice. Of course, a little bit of backlash, but in the end, they got over it, and I managed to still seal the deal with that company. And that was just something that I found over and over again was a common thread. I found the way to navigate that was to then invite my brother into the meetings and find out what exactly are they trying to discuss with him that they didn't feel comfortable discussing with me. And most of the time, it was actually based around money. A lot of the times, they might have wanted a secret kickback underneath the table, various things, but it ended up being around money. So I thought, okay, how can I actually mitigate this and make them feel a lot more comfortable? So I'd have these discussions outside of the workplace. Whoever the decision maker is, I'll invite them out for lunch, dinner, and in the end, we'll talk about the commercials. And once I started doing that, I found that they opened up the gates a lot quicker. So once again, it's about finding the nuances and figuring out, as a woman as well, working in, of course, I live in Nigeria, I'm currently in Kenya, but working in markets that have a lot of low income and a lot of patriarchy, just like Odunaya mentioned. At the end of the day, money talks. So if you're able to show your value, I believe that we can dismantle that gender bias. So that was the first time I actually encountered a lot of stereotype. The next one was, and don't be surprised about this, there's a lot of sexual harassment that takes place in the workplace in these industries. I've actually had a few CEOs, when I was working with them or as a producer at the time, they'll pull me to the side and say, do you know what? You don't need to run a business. I'll buy you land. I'll buy you a house. Just be my girlfriend. That blew my mind. Like, I'm shooting your TV commercials, I'm shooting documentaries for you, and you don't want to see the value of what I'm offering to your business. You'd rather just limit me to the sexual, what I can offer you sexually. And of course, once again, being the strong, outspoken woman that I am, I put them on blast. And of course, they would step back. But it got me thinking that, What if women did not have the connections that I did? What if they didn't have the upbringing that I have? What if, they don't have that strong of a voice? How would they be able to then confront these multi-billionaires who were offering them the whole world at a platter? So even if they did have an entrepreneurial idea, it could get shut down quickly because you're then being encouraged to just be a wife or be a girlfriend, Luckily for me, I think the background stems from my upbringing. My mother and parents, luckily, would always say to me, God doesn't bless you based on your talent, based on your gender. You could be a fantastic singer. You could be a fantastic chef. You can be a fantastic, neuroscientist. It doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman. So we don't ever look at myself. I don't ever look at myself and my skill set and what I can offer based on my gender. So now let's go into tech. When I then pivoted into tech in 2018, 19, there was one common thread. A lot of the entrepreneurs that were pitching alongside me for funding, they were all men. I went to at least 30 pitches and I didn't see one single woman, whether they were entrepreneurs or whether they were VCs. I did not see a single woman. And for me, that was quite discouraging because I didn't have anywhere to turn to. I didn't have any representation. Odunayo mentioned that they have CTOs in MTN. Maybe I also find that women tend to be a bit discreet and quiet about their achievements. So for the regular public to know that MTN have a CTO, it's not common knowledge. So we need to then amplify the voices of women who have these roles. So female entrepreneurs like myself who are in the tech space know that these are the people that I can go to speak to for advice and for direction. I'm not sure if it's a cultural thing, but I think it is where women are kind of encouraged to downplay their achievements. Men shout it from the rooftop, even though they might just have a C grade. But women, we might get an A star, but we're told, no, you've got to be a bit more humble about your achievements. So I think that's one way that we can dismantle that stereotype. And I'm very active. Even if I just make one step, I will put it out on all social media. I'll do interviews about it because I want to also encourage the next generation that if you do need a role model, whatever information on whatever network I have, I'm willing to open it up so that you too, I can pave the way for you too to gain access. I've also spoken and mentored a lot of young women who are trying to get into tech. And one of the biggest issues that they've mentioned, which is what Sean said, was that, first of all, a lot of STEM subjects are seen as male. So are seen as, they're mainly male dominated. So in the household, you want to study, computer science or engineering, your parents would typically, in low-income economies, they'll typically discourage the women, the young girls, from studying these subjects. And if the girls decide they want to become a bit defiant and go ahead to study these subjects, they find that the teachers are men. All the students are also men, and it makes them really uncomfortable. And if we also look at global representation of tech, when we're talking about social media platforms such as Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, majority of the UI and UX and the experience have all been developed by men. So even majority of the tech platforms that we're used to, we're looking at it from this lens of a man. It got me thinking, what if all these platforms were designed by women? Would we still have the same amount of suicide amongst teenagers who heavily rely on validation from these tech platforms, these social media platforms? Women tend to be, like they say, quote unquote, more sensitive. So with that sensitivity in mind and that representation, we might be able to actually help resolve a lot of these global issues. And for me, that's why it's very important to have representation and inclusivity across the tech space. Which African woman right now has a tech platform, apart from Bumble, who's obviously an American lady? There's no other tech platform by an African woman which is accepted globally. That, for me, is a problem, and I'm trying to dismantle that. That's my piece.
Great. Thank you so much for that, Fadez. So we're now going to bring, we're now going to start our panel session. So Rich next. And we're going to bring back all of our speakers. So Sean Hawkins, Odunayo Sanya and Fadeo Gunro. So if you come back together, and can I remind you, please just send through your questions on the chat function and we'll be able to ask those questions of our speakers. Go ahead as well and tweet about the event. So for our handle for the Cherie Blair Foundation It's just hashtag and then Cherie Blair Foundation. And then you also have that for Cambridge Wireless. So my first question is to Odunaye, and this is from Kate. And she asked, I was wondering about how widely accessed that your MTN Nigeria's services are for rural women and men entrepreneurs or men entrepreneurs.
So coverage and accessibility. Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. In terms of coverage and accessibility, MTN enjoys the status of having the widest coverage in Nigeria. So you will typically find MTN services, even in the hinterlands. In terms of moving closer to female entrepreneurs and even the male, recently so from time to time, we recognize that small businesses are the engine room of the economy, and we try to empower them. So recently we did run, not gender-based though, but we had quite a number of women attendees. We did run about a 3-month long masterclass with different, different entrepreneurs, people who are very well established in their field, from finance to tech to payment systems, to all kinds of business. And from time to time, we do that for them. But yes, you would find MTN even in the remotest places in Nigeria. And that enables us to also drive financial inclusion, because we also know that that's a place that a lot of women are, a lot of women in the hinterlands are financially excluded. So we're riding on the back of technology to see that, they can get devices in their hands. That's another hurdle women have to, cross and get access and become financially, included. So that's how I'll answer that question.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for that. Okay, so I'm now going to ask my next question, and this is for Fade from Adetun. I agree that you do not possess your talents based on your gender. How do we move on from here? Is it mentoring the younger generation? Is that what we need to focus on as a community?
I think that, yes, mentorship is very important. I think representation is even more important. If you can see it, you believe it, and you can achieve it. If we haven't seen an African woman IPO her own business, her own tech platform, it's even harder to get the parents to buy into why it's important or why they should encourage their young girls to get into this ecosystem, into this sector. So I feel like representation of successful women in this space is something that naturally, as human beings, when I'll take it back to a few years ago when the first person to break the 100-meter record in 10 seconds. The moment that first man did it, 10 other people broke the record that same year. And I feel that's just the way it is. The moment you see somebody being successful, you think, if they can do it, I can do it. So mentorship is a more practical tool, but in a more visionary level, and in more, I think that, representation is definitely key. And breaking down the mindset or in the family, I think it starts from the family. Once they see the men and women as equal in the family, then the world is your oyster, because there's no barrier to what you can achieve.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Fede, and that makes absolute sense. So I'm going to just race through the questions. So I have a question for Sean. So Sean, what challenges are you seeing for women entrepreneurs who wish to expand their business beyond micro levels? So either within the tech space itself or as users of tech?
Thanks, Olu. So the absolute number one challenge that we hear from women entrepreneurs across the low and middle income countries is around access to finance. And that's probably not going to come as a massive surprise to most of our audience, but it really is far above and beyond any other challenge, the main issue that women are concerned about. And through the research that I was referring to earlier, actually quite a high proportion of the women entrepreneurs responding, around 78%, had investment in their business. But it's really important to acknowledge that for 66% of those women, that investment was from their own personal savings. And for many of the women who'd had investment from external sources, that was from friends or family members. So actually, a very, very tiny number of women running micro or small, medium-sized enterprises have access to that investment. And we wanted to find out some of the reasons why, which are quite interesting. So a lot of women said the reason they found accessing investment really difficult was because the interest rates of the products and services available to them were just far too high for it to be a viable option. Over a third of women felt too worried to take on investments due to concerns about how they'd pay it back. Many respondents felt that the repayment terms just wouldn't work for them, that complicated application processes were too difficult for them to wade through, or they didn't meet the eligibility criteria. So it's massive, systemic, structural barriers in women's ways, and with really actually some quite simple ways to overcome some of those challenges, like creating products and services for women entrepreneurs, specifically, looking at what their needs are, tapping into this huge, unmet needs and the huge potential with women entrepreneurs, having investors that prioritize women as their audiences. And as Fado was saying as well, mentoring is really key. So connecting women to mentors as well as investment, so they know that they're using that investment in a really sound way. They know how to report back on it. They're planning their finances appropriately. So there are lots of challenges around the access to finance piece, but also some really quite simple solutions that we're looking to take forward through our work at the foundation.
That's brilliant. Thank you. So clearly access to finance is, a massive issue for women entrepreneurs. I wonder, Fado, whether you can just talk us through some of the specific things that you learned beyond what you've spoken about already around, how women could counteract some of the challenges around the financial access for their business if they're looking to scale that.
Absolutely. So from my experience, raising venture capital was quite an interesting journey, which I went through in 2018, 2019. And like I said, majority of the VCs that I confronted, pretty much 99% were all men. So trying to pitch my product was from the lens of a woman. So I'll say, if you need a therapist or you need a makeup artist, and I couldn't really connect to the product with the men. So I actually realized that the best thing to do is speak to them in a way that they would understand the value of the business. So I pivoted my pitch to then say, when you travel to Kenya in business and you need a haircut, which platform do you go to right now to book a barber? And there was silence. And I go, that's where Bookings Africa comes in. And then moving forward, I'm doing a lot of research. And after we launched the platform, like Sean just said, access to finance, and Odunaya said, access to the smartphones, smartphone adoption is also quite low. So what I'm now doing is I'm doing a case study where I'm distributing 1,000 smartphones for free. Bookings Africa have also partnered with a microfinance company. Just to also give you some stats, we've got about 85,000 users on our platform, and about 65% are actually women. Out of the 1,000 smartphones that I'll be giving away for free, we want to skewer that to about 65 to 70% of those phones to go to women. And because we've partnered with the micro lending platform, the women in Nigeria would have access to micro loans between $5 and $200. And apart from that, they'll also become agency bankers as well. So the average agency banker who has no access to funding, no jobs whatsoever, they normally make between $200 to $300 a month. So just by using this smartphone, the hypothesis is that you'll be able to directly impact your earning capacity by at least 2x. So these are some of the strategies that we're employing in Bookings Africa. We're constantly learning, we're constantly looking for data points, and we're looking for active ways to help allow women become more digitally included and have more access to finance. This also includes digital literacy training. So a lot of the women that don't have access to smartphones, don't have access to data, they also don't have access to digital literacy training. So they might not know how to benefit from using a Google or using a WhatsApp. So we're trying to basically overcome all these barriers and directly impact their earning capacity. Going back to raising funds, I'm quite relentless and I'm quite tenacious, but also I'm very intentional. A lot of the times when you're raising funds, we tend to be quite excited when people offer us the money that we're after, they give us an offer. But I always say raising funding is kind of like dating. You don't say yes to the first person that offers you to their hand in marriage, basically. You have to find out, do they have the same morals and integrity as I do? Because it's going to be a long-term partnership. So if you're raising funds, you really have to research the VCs. What are the exit strategies that they've done before? Speak to other founders that they've invested in, and then see if the mode and the relationship that they've built, if that's suitable for you as well. And of course, finding a mentor who has been there and done that, I also find opens up the ways, and they could also help introduce you to credible people in the ecosystem.
Brilliant. Thank you for that, Fade. So, Odunaya, I've just got a question for you. So, given some of the challenges around digital literacy, can you talk us through some of the experience that you have within MTN Nigeria around focusing on that area and driving improvements amongst women in the area of digital literacy?
Okay, I will first permit me to say a few things before I delve into that. I believe one of the ways that, we can, as women, we're not helpless. Yes, the society might have, labeled us and put a box and say, these are the characteristics and traits and attributes of a woman, but we're not helpless. I personally believe that in our hands, lies the power to change the narrative and how. Women raise the men. So why? I call it the parable of 1 to 4. There's a proverb where I'm from that says, when you point a finger at the world, 4 points back at you. You're responsible. We raise the boys; they become men, and we are reinforcing the same stereotypes. That's why they grow and they feel very comfortable, because that's the only way they see the world, and you can't blame them. It comes back to this women in the low and middle income countries. There has to be, there has to be that resolve to break that and really train the men, letting them know that gender, the universe is not gender based. It's actually gender blind. It's not gender biased. It's gender blind, and you can be who you want to be, regardless of the gender that nature has given to you. And I think the second thing again is collaboration. I'm still going to answer your question, Oluba. I just wanted to say this. I feel it's strong, in me. It's about collaboration. There's also a proverb, and we say it at MTN. We say if you want to go fast, you go alone. But if you want to go far, you go with people. And you find that, we as women, we can come together. We can begin to create our own, hedge funds and do all those things. Of course, like Fade said, it has to be aligned with people that you share the same values. That's the filter. That's the filter through which you select the people you want to collaborate with. As a female founder, I don't have to go the whole hog alone. If I see that it's becoming a bit tough, can I partner with someone else? And that's where we must also begin to break that myth that says women don't support women. Some of my worst colleagues and bosses really have been men, not even the women. So I think we need to do a lot more with each other than thinking the world, might just give us a handout. That's not what we want. We can create what we desire. So I think it's good to go about it. So let's get back to digital literacy. So for us at MTN, we continue to do this. We have various platforms. We partner with organizations like Slum to School. I don't know if you know about Slum to School. It's an organization that goes into the hinterlands and picks really indigent children and, enables them to learn using phones and devices for them to be able to connect. These are children that don't physically go to a school, but school is where they are. And so we partner with a lot of those organizations. We enable them with the connectivity the children require to connect, because we also believe that, you know what, we need to start from the lowest level, which is the most important. That is, you know, the family, the children when they're growing up. So we do a lot of that. We also do a lot of tertiary trainings. So we do a lot of partnerships with Google, with Microsoft, Cisco, Oracle, IBM, and we train Nigerians where we skew the numbers a bit towards more women, but, you know, certain using data, we select states that, you know, unemployment is high, and then we begin to train alongside these tech companies. We train these Nigerians for free, and we help them set up, you know, their businesses, register their businesses. And before you know it, they can use Facebook, use Google to do a lot of their marketing without necessarily having to pay a consultant, which really a lot of them can't afford to do. We run master classes for the small and medium business owners, both male and female, just to push, you know, what technology can really do for you. And just like, I'll just tell Fade, make MTN your network of, let's partner with you, you know, when you want to give out the phones. I think it's something we can look at in terms of how do we train the people, because we do that often. So how do we help you, partner with you to train these women that you would, and also the men, because they're men, but train them, since we have the partnership with Google, Facebook, and all of that. So those are some of the things that we do during the pandemic. When the pandemic was really tough last year, we're still there, and we're still in it. It's getting better though with the vaccines. We also enabled a number of schools for their students to be able to learn online. Of course, we found that the device gap is huge. And that is where it's a huge gap, because those devices are not cheap. You know, they're not cheap even in the Western world. So when you bring it to a country, a continent where the exchange rate is something else, you know what that means for the people. And over time, MTN has actually also gone into the production of affordable devices. We've partnered with tech companies outside the continent to create and manufacture, you know, devices, both feature phones and smart devices that we sell, you know, at $50. It's still a bit expensive, but we're getting there. And people can pick this, and, you know, they at least they've broken the glass ceiling of accessibility in terms of the device. So those are some of the things, you know, that we do in terms of getting people to be aware, becoming digital literates, when we talk about tech.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for that, Adonaya. Really good, very practical things that we can all learn from. So to our audience, you know, keep your questions coming through. So I've got a question for you, Sean. Kirsty, in her comment, she'd asked, a lot of the world is male by default, so we have to provide female data. So her question is, how can gender disaggregated data help challenge stereotypes?
Thank you, and really great question. And this is one of our key messages at the foundation, is the importance of having gender disaggregated data across a whole range of different policy issues. But it's so pertinent and so important here, particularly when you're looking at, let's say, for example, the impact of the coronavirus pandemic on women entrepreneurs. If we aren't counting the number of women entrepreneurs that this pandemic is impacting and how it's impacting them, then that's a massive issue. And what we're seeing across the board are fiscal recovery policies and economic recovery policies and packages of support, which are gender neutral in their design. But what that actually means, because we have a historic lack of gender disaggregated data, is we are seeing policies being devised that really are more suitable for male entrepreneurship audiences and more accessible. So the financial support packages that are becoming available are more available for men and male-run companies. And this is really, really problematic. And it perpetuates the cycle of women's businesses being more insecure, having lower capital buffers, thinner capital buffers, and more women's businesses closing down. So that collecting gender disaggregated data is one of the core and most fundamental routes into creating gender sensitive policymaking across the board. And there has been a huge interest in this moving forward. And, you know, across the world, organizations, multilateral institutions, the UN, the World Bank, everyone recognizes the importance of collecting this data and why it should feed into policymaking. But what we're seeing is that it's still not happening. So we need buy-in at all levels. And this is something that everyone needs to support. So we need buy-ins from local and national governments, from these multilateral big organizations, from INGOs, civil society organizations, from companies, from corporations, to help collect and harness this data and make sure that we're using it to design policies, to design packages of support, particularly in the wake of the coronavirus pandemic, that are actually going to have a gender equal impact. And that's the only way that we're going to move further forwards in our efforts to achieve gender equality.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you for that, Sian. So question for you, Fadde. So have you come across any sort of programs or projects in Africa where use of digital technology has helped to start and advance businesses for women?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, Cherie Blair Foundation they've got their own app called Her Venture. For me, that is an amazing tool, an amazing platform for female entrepreneurs. It's got a variety of modules and it's absolutely free. And I've seen and heard firsthand of the benefits of that. There's also, in collaboration with GSMA, there is MIST, which is mobile and training, a mobile training skills toolkit. So those two, as well as LSETF, Lagos State Employment Trust Fund, which Brookings Africa have partnered with to help distribute the 1,000 phones that we're using for our case study. Those are three programs that I know are specifically, they're all about training female entrepreneurs. They're all about making sure that you get access to digital literacy training and to the right support that you need, whether it's upskilling, whether it's retooling, whether it's access to finance. These three platforms I know are big advocates of that. And I'm trying to work with all of them in a variety of ways to ensure that what we're offering Brookings Africa, all these women will also have access to it. Of course, we're starting off in Nigeria, but we want to expand to a lot of sub-Saharan African countries.
Brilliant. Thank you. Sadly, we've run out of time. So I know our audience would have asked you lots of questions. So what I'm going to do now is we'll close. So our discussions have highlighted just some of the reasons for the wide disparity between men and women in terms of economic participation. So you've heard from all of our speakers. The reality is, for the tech sector to thrive and continue to grow at the levels we're seeing right now, then waiting 257 years to fix these disparities is simply not going to work. So in the spirit of International Women's Month and the theme, Choose to Challenge, we choose to challenge and we choose to take action collectively in collaboration. After this event, we'll send you an email setting out just some of the ways you can get involved. We'll also share a link to the recording of this webinar. Please continue the conversation so you've got all of the details across all of the social channels, so LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. And if you'd like to get in touch with the Cherie Blair Foundation for Women next, and find out how you can get involved in the 100,000 Women's campaign, or would like to join the Foundation's Mentoring Women in Business program by signing up as a corporate partner, then head over to cherieblairfoundation.org. If you'd like to learn more about up-and-coming CW Cambridge Wireless events, we have our CW Tech Conference taking place on the 7th to the 8th of July. Or if you'd like to learn more about the CW Tech for Impact program and get involved in our digital initiatives, inclusion initiatives, then head over to www.cambridgewireless.co.uk. You can also email us, and you've also got our contact number. We've shared a link with you in the chat, so you can provide us with feedback on today. Tell us about other areas that you would like to learn about. And I would like to thank each of our speakers for taking the time to share their experience. Sean Hawkins, Odunayo Sanya, Fadil Gonro. I would also like to thank our partners, Cherie Blair Foundation for Women and CW Cambridge Wireless, as well as our supporters, Synergy Solutions. Finally, I'd like to thank you for joining us in this important conversation. So let's all continue to choose to challenge the norm and collectively put in place the needed infrastructures whilst capitalising on the opportunity presented by technology to deliver economic parity for women entrepreneurs in low and middle income countries. So thank you from me on that note. Thank you from me and goodbye.